It's not often I want to yell things at a movie screen. I hate it when others do it. I find the behavior rude, immature, and churlish, but I never feel so strongly motivated to yell things, unlike children during horror movies. But this movie actually made me want to scream, or cry, or both. Artemis Fowl is based on the best-selling series by Eoin Colfer. Is that how you say his name? Let me check.
Joining us live this morning from Dublin is author Eoin Colfer.
Artemis Fowl is based on the beloved book series by Eoin Colfer. So Artemis Fowl is about the child prodigy and criminal mastermind Artemis Fowl, who is 12 in the first book. The series in total accounts for 8 books, as well as a spin-off book. You see, the Fowls have had a very long line of criminal activity, and when the father of Artemis Fowl I, attempted to sort of legalize it and invest in a post-communism Russia, he went missing, killed by the Russian mafia, presumably. With him went most of the family fortune. So the first Artemis Fowl book is about Artemis Fowl II's attempts to regain some of the family fortune that they lost. He does this by kidnapping a fairy. Full-grown fairy. The 12-year-old kidnaps a fairy. I cannot stress this enough. It's a book about a child who kidnaps a fairy in exchange for a ransom. And it has been in development hell for nearly 19 years. The book was published in 2001 and they've been trying to make a film out of it ever since. So last Friday, the movie was finally released after a very long build-up. And it had actually already been delayed twice, from August 9th to May 29th, and then delayed again to June 12th. It debuted on Disney Plus to negative reviews. And for good reason. It's a truly awful movie. As a fan of the book series, this was perhaps the most disappointing adaptation that has been made since 2018's A Wrinkle in Time, which is kind of sad that it was that recent, but oh well. Also made by Disney. Very sad. But you know what? Not even compared to the books. It's still a terrible movie for other reasons. It's just bad all around. You know, and a lot of this stuff has already been covered by more popular YouTubers, but not by me. And my take is completely different, because I really, really care. I've been waiting for this for like ever. So let's begin. It's kind of insane how many issues this movie has. And to cover the insanity of the situation, I've written a list of everything that was wrong with it. Mulch Dickens is a tall dwarf. Why? To make bad jokes? So they don't have to have the added expense of having a completely motion capture character? I don't know. But it's really weird, considering he's supposed to be a dwarf. Judi Dench and Josh Gad are both doing bad Batman impressions. Although they do make a self-aware joke about them both sounding like gravelly hippopotami, so okay. But it was still really hard to understand some of their dialogue, so shame on them. Artemis Fowl is called a criminal mastermind, yet never does any criminal activity. After kidnapping Holly Short, Artemis and Holly immediately become forever friends. Artemis makes annoying scream sounds during action scenes. They never explain why Butler has white hair or bright blue eyes. Butler's fake-out death has more screen time than he had in the actual movie. Butler is completely smushed in the final fight instead of engaging with the troll in awesome hand-to-hand combat. There's a lot of bad CGI in this film. Like, it's kind of funny how bad it is. Like, it's not exactly awful, but it is very cheap-looking and fake. It's a very weird line. The film is a blatant ripoff of Men in Black and Spy Kids, yet is never good as either of them. The film is not Die Hard with fairies. Angeline Fowl is dead because of Disney. The CGI when Mulch Dickens opens his jaw is absolutely horrendous. It's weird in the book, but when you don't even get the privilege of having a motion capture Gollum-like character who you know is obviously fake, it just looks completely disgusting. And that paired with already awful CGI is just a not good thing. Mulch Dickens completely changes from Team Leprechaun to Team Artemis Fowl for no reason. Mulch Dickens doing the voiceover in the jail cell is just a lazy exposition tool. The exposition continues throughout the entire movie, and yet nothing makes sense. The film delivers exposition through textbook examples such as reporter psychiatrists and prisoners in jail cells telling their story. The score is largely unremarkable. It does have bagpipes though, which I thought was weird because most of the time you associate bagpipes with Scotland, and this film is set in Ireland. The inconsistency with the time freezes. In one scene, everything freezes, including the stuff on the inside. But by the time the final fight rolls around, nothing on the inside freezes. Now technically this is explained. Judi Dench says, "outside only." But the dialogue is obscured by her Chainsmoker voice, a loud score, and button noises, so... still bad. The time freezes are already ticking time bombs, but they add another ticking time bomb by making them malfunction. They never explain what happens when the time bomb collapses. They keep making it out to be very dramatic and deadly and terrifying, and then they show fairies being escorted out of it, but they never actually tell you what happens. You never see what happens to those fairies. And when the time bubble does pop, everyone inside Fowl Manor, Artemis, Juliet, and Butler, they're completely fine. They never actually confront the main villain, Opal Cowboy. Artemis Fowl takes off his reflective sunglasses 10 minutes after meeting Holly Short, and it was only their second scene together. The dialogue is horribly horrendous and sounds unnatural. The line readings, oh my gosh, it's like a 5th grade play. I'm looking at you, Holly Short and Artemis Fowl. Specifically, Artemis Fowl's line delivery is awful. It's a mostly boring, fairly monotone voice. Bad child actors are still bad actors. You can have good child actors, like Haley Joel Osment, any of the Harry Potter kids, the Stranger Things cast, Home Alone, Jacob Tremblay, but this is just unbearable. You can see that he's just waiting for his next line to be delivered to him. Artemis Fowl is called a genius and yet never does anything smart. Instead of showing Artemis Fowl as a competent mastermind, the movie just gives him lazy escape keys to all of the plot's problems. Instead of Artemis Fowl figuring out that fairies exist or studious research, his father straight up tells him. The movie feels like a video game during the action scenes in the worst possible way. The movie has video game level dialogue. I made an entire blog post about what the movie did wrong before the movie even came out, and I was right about basically everything. Instead of being Eurasian, they made the manservant black. Instead of being black, they made the strong female lead white. Any scene with Colin Farrell just feels unnatural and shoved in. Artemis Fowl is called a kid genius and yet can't figure out that his house has an entire secret room underneath the staircase. Artemis Fowl was shown surfing and riding a hoverboard-like device to emphasize that even though while he is a genius, he's still relatable to all the dumb children watching. So the father tells Artemis this poem, right? The Irish Blessing. Every night before bed, just in case he goes missing and Artemis has to find his journal. Artemis Fowl the Sr. wrote an entire paragraph of exposition in his journal, then wrote "time to believe" on the next page. This implies that for one, he knew that would be his last entry. For two, that if he was gone, Butler would tell Artemis about their family business, even though Butler explicitly says that if Artemis Fowl I, Colin Farrell, found out that he was telling Artemis Fowl the child about all the family business, he would kill him. And number three, that Artemis Fowl II would be able to figure out that poem was actually a clue to find the journal. Why was Julia 12? And Butler's niece? Or even in the movie. In the book, her role is Angeline Fowl's caretaker, but seeing as how Angeline Fowl is dead in the movie, there's no reason for her to be in the movie at all. Technically, she does bring Artemis Fowl a sandwich, and while I'm sure the entire movie would have collapsed if they didn't have that, I feel like it wasn't too important. Artemis Fowl rarely wears a suit, making him a much more generic child protagonist. Artemis Fowl is called a kid genius, a child prodigy, and yet cannot figure out what his own father's job is. Holly Short screams angry to no one when she is captured. No one else was in the room. She just screams angry as soon as she wakes up, and it was really weird. Judi Dench says, "Top of the morning," in a Chainsmoker voice. It was the funniest part of the entire movie. The movie was largely unfunny, in fact mostly being anti-funny. Other than the top of the morning, I think I laughed about twice. What was going on with Cudgeon? Who were the executives, and why did Cudgeon keep bringing them up like they mattered? They didn't. Nothing happened with them. What was Commander Root already on the line for? Why was Cudgeon in jail? More importantly, how did he return from jail, assume a commanding position in their police force, and why did no one care about that? Near the end of this film, there's this moment that's supposed to be dramatic where the officers turn on Cudgeon and do what Wrench tells them to, except it's not really built up or hinted at, it's just kind of dumb. There's a moment when they disable all magic in the house for no other purpose other than to extend the drama of Butler's death for as long as they can. And it was largely undramatic anyway. They call Butler Domovoy. If you've read the books, you know why this is such a huge disrespect to the character. The movie does this thing where the hook, Artemis Fowl being a criminal mastermind, only becomes true until the last few seconds of the movie. It's become a pretty big problem in blockbusters and causes a lot of franchises to just fail. For example, you had Independence Day Resurgence, which should have been the dichotomy of the first one, which would have had the humans going up against the aliens. But instead they leave that to the last 2 minutes of the movie. Very lame. The pitch meeting for the film was so much more funny than the actual film. The final fight takes up a third of the film with little or no reasons to justify why it should take up that much of the film's runtime. The Aculos is a plot MacGuffin and I hate it. I don't even know what the plot is. It's so devoid of logic. Let's see. Artemis Fowl needs to get the Aculos to free his dad. Simple enough. So he kidnaps a fairy to blackmail the other fairies into giving the Aculos to him. It's so pretty simple. The fairy sent in a dwarf and Artemis says right on schedule. Apparently he thinks that the Aculos is on the dwarf, or it was part of his plan to switch the dwarf over to his side. Once the fairies actually show up, he frees his hostage. After getting the Aculos, which was in his own house by the way, kid genius, he apparently switches it out for a tracking device because he knows that the dwarf will eat it. A troll attacks but doesn't really sidetrack his plan that much. Now that he has the Aculos, he lets everyone escape. But during the negotiations with Commander Root, he mentioned wanting gold, but he didn't get the gold, so there was really no reason to let everyone escape. Now that he has the Aculos, he doesn't even know how to get it to Opal Kaboy. Luckily, the fairy he kidnapped turns out to be his forever friend, and magics their way out of the problem. Kid genius. Cannot stress that enough. The movie can't stress it enough. Kid genius. Artemis Fowl explicitly says that no fairies are allowed in his house while he is alive. In the book, it's because he knows that means they'll use the biobomb and he knows how to outsmart that, and that's his checkmate. But in the movie, he just kind of says it. And instead of being edgy, it comes out more stupid. I've seen the movie twice and still have no clue what was going on. Something that cost $125 million to make came out this bad. Something directed by Kenneth Branagh turned out this bad. Most movie adaptations try to take the time to develop their characters properly and get the story right. The first Harry Potter was 2 hours and 39 minutes. The first Lord of the Rings was 3 hours and 28 minutes. The first Hunger Games was 2 hours and 23 minutes, and Ready Player One was 2 hours and 19 minutes. This means that they easily could have added another extra hour onto the runtime, but they didn't. It's another failed potential franchise by Disney. Right now we've got Percy Jackson, A Wrinkle in Time, John Carter, Lone Ranger, and The Nutcracker and the Legend of the Four Realms. The one thing Artemis Fowl did that was actually evil, extort a fairy through deadly means to get her fairy Bible, was in a deleted scene. The deleted scene was about 5 minutes long and would have been about in the middle of the movie, but that was where the book began. In this deleted scene, there was this one line, "You have no idea what you're dealing with, human," that was said so monotone and generically that I actually laughed. The deleted scene was one of the best parts of the movie while simultaneously being one of the most disappointing. The film actually had a pretty cool opening, but it lasts 2 minutes and the movie's never cool again. After that very cool opening, the film undoes it all by having the exposition with Mulch Diggums begin when Artemis Fowl I is not missing, which makes those 2 minutes relatively useless. Josh Gad is trying really hard not to sound like Olaf, but sometimes he does anyway. Most of the scenes from the first trailer are not in the movie, which suggests massive reshoots, and since it was delayed twice, that's probably true. The film never explains the fairy law despite constantly referring to it. "This is my house, you must do as I say." I can't do an Irish accent. Holly Short's motivation, trying to clear her father's name, is so much more generic than her being the first female officer in Leprechaun. The movie refers to Holly Short as a hot-headed rule breaker, yet she rarely breaks any rules, and when she does, there are no consequences. At the end of the movie, everyone welcomes Holly Short back as a hero, even though she teamed up with the human who kidnapped her. The team-up is completely forced. None of the characters have chemistry, except for Josh Gad and Judi Dench, but they only had one scene together. The only edge this has over Cats as not the worst film I've ever seen is that it's half an hour shorter. The exposition dialogue is horrible. It's all, "Ireland, home of Artemis Fowl. Artemis loved Ireland." And there's a lot of fours and UCs sprinkled throughout. It's just bad and it's repetitive and it's just phrased so weirdly. It's like they put it into Google Translate, switch it to Romanian, switch it to Russian, and then switch it back to English. The movie can't decide if Artemis Fowl wants the Aculos, his father back, or gold. He asks for all three. It has this many fundamental things wrong with it. It's not like Cats, where it was kind of just the wrong medium for something that only worked really as a live performance. But Artemis Fowl was actively trying to make a terrible movie out of really good material. It does the thing where the people involved clearly didn't do their research, because so many tiny things in this movie just destroy things that would have been cool to see in other movies based on the books. This movie will go down with the likes of Percy Jackson, The Last Airbender, and Aragon as movies that are completely unacknowledged by the fan base. Magic is a thing, yet no one uses it. The entire fight with the troll is so anticlimactic and boring. It's a fight with a troll, it shouldn't be boring. They don't even defeat the troll. The chandelier that the troll grabs onto falls. The movie does not have an ending. It's resolved in 2 minutes. They conveniently magic their way out of everything. They don't even have a showdown with Opal Kaboy. Why did they have Opal Kaboy in the film if they weren't going to do anything with the character? The movie has the audacity to try and get you excited about seeing these characters again. You know, when I was first writing the draft of that, I had no idea it would go on for like nearly 90 bulletin points. But there was so much wrong with this movie. I just kept finding more and more things wrong with it. This was by far one of the worst movies I have ever seen, and the worst film of this decade. The original book is full of logic and cleverness, and it's pretty funny. One of those stories is cool and thought out. One of them is a random hodgepodge of cool elements that has no rules or laws, no attempt at character arcs, and never tries to be good. Tries to act like it's good, but never tries. Overall, I give the film a 1 out of 10, with a general statement being, Artemis Fowl is a dull, uninspired, boring, stupid adaptation of the beloved book series. Well, that's it. Those are my thoughts on Artemis Fowl. Not my favorite movie by any means. This is my first video where I've tried talking about movies, because I know that if I start talking, I'm not going to stop. And for the people who know me, and I know a lot of the people who know me, they know that if I start talking about movies, I will not stop talking about movies until my thoughts have been eloquently expressed on the subject. I feel like this is the part of the video where they would ask you to subscribe or drop a comment or give the video a big thumbs up. But honestly, I don't care what you do. If you made it this far, kudos to you.